of heart-to-heart conversations with Mandy. Here with me, I have the beautiful and the radiant Rhoni-Ann Parkins. So, at just 29 years old, Rhoni-Ann Parkins is a dynamic young woman whose life radiates passion for God, creativity, and impact. She is not only a gifted singer and writer, but also an entrepreneur. Recently stepping into her role as a medical technologist, Rhoni-Ann Parkins carries a powerful story of resilience. Her journey has been marked by both triumphs and trials, yet through unwavering faith and perseverance, she has reached her expected end. Guided by her philosophy, we may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. By Maya Angelou. She's a friend, a fellow YouTuber, and mentor. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the resilient, radiant, and all-rounded Rhoni-Ann Parkins. Welcome.
Thank you.
I can't believe this actually happening. It's been in the books for some time now, but here we are. Praise Jesus. So tell the people, I know we just read who is Rhoni-Ann, but who do you say that you are?
Well, I'm a person of purpose, living in purpose. Rhoni-Ann is constantly growing. I'm very determined, very diligent, very hardworking, very resilient. I'm a go-getter. And somebody that just wants to live the living purpose, as I said. You know, just want to be in the will of God, wanting to make a difference.
Love that purpose.
Yes.
So what was it like growing up?
Well, growing up from childhood to teenagers, adolescents, you know, I was just living life to please God, being a good child, being a good daughter. Trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. Honestly, that was my whole life growing up. Working hard to get good grades. Yes, so just trying to figure out myself in God, trying to figure out who I am as a person. Just really living and trying to please the Lord as best as I can.
Love that. So you never get no trouble like as a child?
Trouble, I heard that trouble, not in the sense of, not serious trouble, not serious trouble.
Okay. Alright, so I'm going to insert one of her singing clips here. She is a certified singer.
Caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment, and I never wanna leave. I'm not here for blessing. Oh Jesus, Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. Oh, I just want.
Talented, all the things. So I want to know, when did you discover your singing talent?
Well, I started singing on the children's choir at my home church, and I would say I discovered it then, but probably not consciously. I just know that my parents would always probably allow me to exercise the talent, especially gift. So I would say about really discovering that, hey, you know, God gave me this talent, God gave me this gift about probably 9, 10, truly like discovering it. So I would say that that's when I really discovered it.
Love that. So many of you may know Rhoni is a pastor's kid, a PK, right? So tell us, what was it like growing up as a pastor's kid?
So first I must say that being a pastor's kid, it's a privilege and a curse at the same time. Privilege to have people that work in ministry, to have people that are at the forefront of what God has called you to do. That's a privilege to have that type of leadership around people. But when it comes down to the outside factors, growing up, you were always expected to be, and we're seen as aliens, different. But I wouldn't probably say that there was a period where I never really, it wasn't really that rough because I wasn't focusing on the negative. What I would say when I started university in my later time, you're under the microscope, everybody's looking, you would hear things about yourself that you really never know. Things are being said, the expectations are just ridiculous. And at one point, I didn't have a rebellious stage, but I was just out of it and, if you want to say, pressured mentally in my mind to be, and so it's a typical experience as other pastors' kids, but it's not all candy and sweet, it's bitter sometimes.
A lot of expectation.
A lot of expectation.
I get that. Well, I don't get it, but I can see where she's coming from, right? I think that's a good way to segue into university. How did you stay grounded in your faith during that time?
I'm not going to lie, Amanda, it was easy, and I don't think it was a perfect road. I don't think it was a perfect road because even in the mistakes and bad decisions and wrong decisions, it wasn't wasted. But university, being grounded was intentional for me. Living on campus, you wake up, you're on campus, you live with persons with different personalities, different beliefs. The bar is right over there, the parties are there, everything. So it took some intentionality, it took some driving force to know that, okay, I'm here, and just have to hold the banner high and stuff. And there are times when, as I said, you might not have made good decisions, but I learned out of that. It wasn't a perfect journey, but yeah.
Well, that's not perfect, but purposeful. So, in 2021, you won the title of Miss Resident Life, correct?
Yes.
And for those who may not know, that is a pageant competition for the House of Residents at UTIC. And your girl won. Not second, not third, she won, okay? We want to know, what was that journey like leading up to that? Afterwards, how did you handle the limelight, stuff like that?
Okay, so it was a good journey. But before I entered, pageants aren't really my thing, and it's cliche. Everybody would say, "Oh, pageants aren't my thing," but there were many other residents in life before that, and I didn't enter. But I don't know. This year is like probably I should. This is a new step of growth, coming out of my comfort zone, and it was. So it is also a purposeful pageant. There's a charity at the end of it, and it's not just beauty, it's purpose, different activities, different things to take advantage of, different sessions, right? So the journey was a different feeling, it was a different feel. I've never done pageant before, but I didn't go in with the mindset to win. I went in everyone, 90 days, no. But I really went in to have fun and to fellowship with other dorm residents and persons that were in there. And leading up photo shoot, everything, it was so good. I've grown. Even on the night, I remember I was holding the other person that was in the top 5, 2 of us were left, and I was like, "Do you win, man?" And my name called, and I was still around there because I was so shocked. So it was a very good experience. And even though it is not a broad base like Miss Utech, I'm glad that through that dorm initiative, through that dorm event, I could have been of some impact in that way to other persons.
I love that. I was reading your threads. She's a writer, guys, okay? If you want to see good Christian quotes, go on to Rhoni's threads, okay? But she said something about impact over impression.
Yes.
And I think that's the way that also summarizes your journey. But I want to know, like, how was it after the fact? Like, how did you deal with the limelight? Because everybody knows Rhoni now. Well, not that they didn't know you before, but how did you deal with that aspect of yours?
Well, I'm not a person for the limelight. I really don't like being up front. So how I dealt with it? I just dealt with it. Honestly, I just dealt with it. I mean, the next morning coming out and learn, oh, you're the girl when we learn, whatever. So I just dealt with it gracefully and just be pleasant and all of that.
I want to insert something here that your humility is probably one of the characteristics that I admire about you most. When I started UTech and just felt lost, to be honest. I didn't want to be in Kingston, okay? But there I was. And Reverend Jermaine Lawrence, bless his heart, he called me and he was like, everything good? I'm like, yeah. I don't have anybody to talk to, but yeah. And it's like, I'm going to send Rhoni over to him. I'm like, who? And then, lo and behold, like, she texts me and she's like, hey, I'm from NTSM, which is Tertiary Students Ministry. Yes. And then you initiated a link up, right? And then we're just talking. Nobody knows that she was big at art that time. And then it was after that I discovered like she was the joint religious coordinator. I'm like, what? Well, like, oh, you managed to wear that hat and just keep calm. Like when I'm telling you, like, just cool about that. So I really appreciate that. Yes. So since we're on the topic of university, some persons might know, some persons might not know that journey wasn't very linear for you. How many years did you spend at UTech?
I'd say 8 to 9, around 9 years.
Wow. Takes a lot of perseverance to do that, right? Where do you want to start with that story?
So I wouldn't want to go through the long winding road. But I started off in 2016 where I was doing well. I was doing well enough in my first year because this is what I really want to do. This is what I feel like God wanted me to do. In 2017, I started to fail. I think I failed in my first year, but not miserably. I started to fail courses. I don't know why. I don't know. I know that I love the sciences, and I know I would have to work harder because I would probably have a challenge with the sciences, but I love it. When I was failing, I didn't know why. 2019 failing, did every summer to do over courses, and I would fail this particular course over and over again, General Chemistry 1 and 2, God bless you, and I'm on dorm every summer. 2019, I remember I was at my elder's house visiting her, and long story short, I couldn't select my weddings because UTech is always happening, and we all have challenges with the system and stuff. So I really thought it was a system error or something. So one of my brothers, they called me from them. I said, hey, ma, I called them and got through, and they said, go and listen to him. So I called them down. So I stepped outside from my elders, the vicinity that she was in, and I called. And the lady said, just a minute. In my mind, I was like, you don't need to take a minute for that. So I was kind of suspicious, and then she said she's seeing a discontinued status. And, you know, I think I would have semi-passed out on her step. And, you know, our elders, they're strong on their faith. They're like, you're going back, come and eat your food. And I was so distraught, my spirits, you know, because I've been working hard and, you know, I'm failing. I'm trying my best. And I just, at that point, I was like, why is this done? Because I was on academic probation prior to this. My GPA was at like 1.7.
Oh.
And you need to get it up past 2 so you can be back on track. So that is what I was doing the 2 summers preceding that, plus the 3 semesters. So that was not enough. So I went home, and my parents, very supportive. My parents have been very supportive, there for me. And the next day, my father and I went to UTech to see what can be done to get more information. And, you know, regrettably, one of my lecturers told me that, you know, Rhoni, it's either you're gonna appeal or you have to switch up course, you can't continue, you know. And I mean, I was just there. I was just zoned out because this is really happening. Now I already spent what? 3 years. 3 years and all of that. I was like, God, all this just gonna go in the dream. And after that, I decided, I had a conversation with my parents, I'm gonna appeal, I'm gonna pray about it, and I did. My father looked through the appeal letter. I did waited. I think my mother made a call to the university or the dean and waited. And unexpectedly one day, the dean called and said she wants to have a meeting. And fast forward to the meeting, my parents came with me in that meeting, you know, like in a boardroom. There were many lecturers there because I would have been very interactive with them, always behind them, always trying to understand what I was getting. And the aura, the tone of the room was just defeat. My mother was on the left, my father was on the right, and I remember my mother asked me to just give me another chance because they printed out everything. They said that clearly there was progress, but it wasn't enough, and you know, it was miserable like the whole feeling thing, and I was just defeated. Coming out of that room, seeing my friends start school already started up. Not knowing how to explain, you'd have to really understand that feeling. And going home, I remember my father saying, you want to go to NC or you want to just do medical technology there? And before I could even respond, he was like, no, you know. So I'm glad I had the experience of faith there. I went home. I remember my mother telling me to pack my bags, pack up your stuff, you're going back. And in my mind, I'm like, this lady don't see that the school said I cannot come back, it's done. And I did foolishly. And she kept saying, she heard the voice of the Lord saying the day, but not the night. But my faith, honestly, I would never come and pretend it was gone. Not upset with God, just lost, not understanding. I was at home and my father came to me and said he got a call from the dean that they have given me another chance. And out of nowhere, and the thing that surprised me to this day, I didn't start the same time. I was disappointed about that, but because of everything that would have happened, they said start in January. And when I started in January, it was like a fresh start. I had a 0.00 weight average to start with, so that GPA that I should have carried over, somehow, I don't know how that happened. So the Lord would have allowed me to just do what I just transferred credits and did what was left. I still failed after. I still failed courses. I did courses like 2-3 times, I still failed. Sometimes I felt like I was on the edge because I believe God gave me another chance and I don't want to mess it up. Still failed. I was really trying, and I cried in between the sleepless nights, even though the there were rough days. Even after I got that chance to go back, I felt like I'm not gonna make it. You know, this too much. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, and I recently graduated and God is so good. He made it possible. And so I know that anything that is attached to Him, it's possible.
Praise the Lord.
Yes.
Like, can we just have a full praise break right here?
Lord.
Literally. What a journey. I mean, what inspired you to stay though with that program of study?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't know, you know. I just know that when I started back, when I proceeded after everything, I didn't have this push, and I don't know, this drive. But you know, I always get disclaimer. It was never my parents pushing me. This is what I wanted to do, like the whole profession itself. But what inspired me, I'm not really sure. I just know that I wanted to finish. And it wasn't easy. Imagine having your friends graduating. I've lost friends along the way just because I've spent years at UTech. And it sounds crazy. And those things were discouraging. So I don't know what inspired me. I'm just telling you it was all God. Because I had close friends at the time. I had a classmate, probably the same. And I lecturer told her that something that she not gonna make it, she not gonna pass or whatever. She got up and switched. She and I were in this and she switched to another program and started a different study. So I just feel like in everything, the setbacks and the failures, it kept honestly pushing me to try harder. I just feel like I had to finish even though it was very hard, very difficult.
Dream delayed but not denied. I'm happy to touch on friendships. 9 years at university was on top of a lot about friendships.
Yes.
What did you learn about friendships?
Well, living one dorm and not sidetracking but interacting with a lot of people and sisterhood would have been the norm, living with 41 other females. You develop friendships based on likings and dorm activities and so. But coming closer to the end and being in the working world or just life happening, it taught me that, how do I say this nicely? That when it comes down to friendships, you have to be around people that value who you are, not what the box or the role that they want to put you in. You will outgrow people also, but it doesn't mean that you have to have bad blood with them or beef. You just outgrow and you can be courteous. But I think the value part, sometimes some friendships end because people don't really value you or what you bring to the table. You have to, I don't say cut off, but you have to just separate. So I really think that is very important. You have to value people. Another thing that friendships also taught me that you have to give grace because we're all busy, we have different trajectories in life. You might not talk every day, but we have to give grace to people.
Love that. I think friendships will always be an interesting dynamic for me. There's no, formula.
Right.
To keep them going. But in 2022 as well, you lost two close friends. That just came back to me. How did you cope with that? I remember that was very hard for you.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm still coping. But it's just, the blow is not so hard. I can call it the I remember when I would have been more closer with Tavares than with Tavarn. But Tavares, that should have even been at my graduation. Tavares has been like a bigger brother, even though he's older by a year or 2 months. But he's like a bigger brother to me. To me, it's still like you're still here based on the nature, but I don't think I fully coped with it. I don't think I fully coped with it because he was always looking out for me even when I was on dorm and he was on dorm. Never left me out, never. I don't think I fully coped with that. When you somebody that is genuine people and people that are close to you.
Well, this is not the end, but this is the end of part one. And next week, we are going to uncover more about Rhoni-Ann's journey, particularly her entrepreneurial journey and future goals. So if you want to know more about that, stick around. Thank you for joining me for yet another heart to heart episode. This is episode 2, where you heard about Rhoni-Ann's testimony of perseverance. She shared her unique university journey and life in the limelight. Now, for part 2, which premieres this Friday at 5 p.m., you will hear more about her entrepreneurial journey, future goals, and her new life as a medtech. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you feel uplifted, motivated, and inspired. Stay tuned for part 2, and I'll see you next time. From my heart to yours. Bye.